we're still, as you all know, still suffering from folks getting COVID, and hopefully, if you've made the decision to get vaccinated, hopefully you've done so, and if not, I think they're still offering shots and arms, so please get your shot. With that, I'll go ahead and call our agenda briefing to order. And first item will be adoption of our agenda for tonight. Is there any amendments or adjustments to tonight's agenda, council, as you have your packets? Okay. Hearing none, I will ask for a motion to adopt this evening's agenda as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second? Motion is made, received a second. Any question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. We'll follow right on down our agenda. First item is council comments. I'll open it up to council as always. I'll start to my right. Ms. Harris.
The only thing that I have is whoever it was that put the signs up about our town manager. I'm just glad to see that someone recognized that there's a difference in our town. And I thank our staff, our managers that are here, and all the staff for all the great things that they're doing for our town. That's all I have.
Great. Did you say it was the town manager or not?
I believe it was the town manager, but I won't say it.
Oh, okay. All right. All right.
We'll talk to the town sign shop.
Yeah. Ms. Williams.
I just want to go over a couple of things just to see what any updates or anything on the sandwich signs.
We are working on that.
Okay, and have you heard anything definite about the election for Troutman for November of this year?
Nothing is definite until the legislatures in Raleigh get through doing their thing. However, there's not going to be an election in Troutman this year. We've got filing period that would normally start next month. And at this point, unless there is something that is expected from our House Speaker, talking to Jeff McNeely, our representative, and Green Mills, who represents us south of here in parts of our area, actually. And talking to both of them, unless something really crazy happens, there will not be an election in Troutman this year. Mayor Pro Tem Hinkle had sent me a message where he had read through, I think it may have been the league or somebody had sent out a blast saying that certain municipalities or towns with districts could opt in or opt out. The one thing that I was asked is that we may wish to prepare a resolution, being Troutman is the only, well, we're not the only one. Love Valley, I don't think has districts either, nor Harmony. But I had told them from speaking to you all, I didn't know that there was a burning desire for this council to really have to have an election this year. And they said if that was the case, we may consider a resolution that would help them. The thought process is, as we've discussed before, if they wait and do it next year, it's a cost savings to the county instead of having to gear up all the personnel to do one election for one area. And again, due to the census being late, that's what brought all of this on. But they're trying to also seize the opportunity of saying, okay, let's don't use this this wasteful expense of doing the municipal elections the way they have been doing them. For basically, most places are turning out 3 to 6% voter interest. And they feel like the positive by doing it in a normal election year is that there may be a lot more interest in that. That's what's coming from Raleigh.
Okay. And
unless some legislation is passed that calls off the Troutman election, there should be an election. Because the legislation I've seen only deals with towns that have districting, such as
right.
Station. And those are the only ones that are getting put off. If the legislature decides to do everybody, and I saw even some towns or districts weren't even being postponed.
That's what I had read, that they specifically said towns with districts like, and it said Statesville and Mooresville, those were put delayed. So that's why I was,
Yeah, any that are completely at large, like Troutman, would go ahead.
As I said in speaking to our House members, they said we'll have no election, but I'll be glad to reaffirm it and restate it in a different manner if I need to.
thank you.
I'm saying, yeah, I agree if legislation is passed, but it's not passed, there without being an election.
Well, I can't see having it for three small, and I use the word quote small, elections in November for the county to put that expense up, really, when they're not doing Statesville and Mooresville also. My last thing, the dumpsters at Cat's Patch.
Yes.
Is that
Uh,
working on that?
It is suspended for right now to explain that. There was more pressing issues that were in violation of our ordinances that were nearby, that in speaking with the property owner in question, I felt like that the town would be in better position if we took care of blatant violations that were occurring first, and then once the compliance came into play, then we would revisit that. But it has been suspended. I have not talked to him about that particular topic since March.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Now?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have a couple things. I would like to thank Sheldon Klein, the up-and-coming country music, I would say a star, for him releasing his video and putting our town in a great light. It was just fantastic that he chose his hometown, that he had the opportunity to film it in Nashville. He picked Troutman, and I think he could do great things for us, and I'd like to see us maybe possibly down the road recognize him with some proclamation. And if and when we get back to our parties in the park, I'd like to see if we could possibly book Shellham and show our appreciation to him, and that would maybe a good time to do a proclamation. But I'd like to see him perform in his hometown, and I'm sure he would love it. But again, great PR. He didn't have to come here and do that, and I just want to thank him for being a professional and thinking of his town and everybody in it. It was fantastic. My other thing is, I'm going to just like throw this out and maybe try and reel it in, but the Department of Transportation or the Department of the DOT with Exit 42, because I've read our emails, haven't responded because I would say a lot more than in an email. But, and our background with the Department of Transportation, me personally as Councilman now, I'm not happy with some of the things, how they treat us. But Exit 42 is the pathway, basically, except for Old Mountain Road and 21, into our town. I totally agree and get with it that we have to make sure it's clean and looks good. I get that. But it's unfair that we have to have the burden of paying for this upkeep. I don't know if we could, even just to, and I'll stick it to them, let's send them a bill. Let's call our representatives that represent us in the state, tell them that we're not happy with how we're being treated by the Department of Transportation with the cleanliness in the areas that they need to do. They also need to do Murdoch Road, as everyone here knows, and they also need to do other areas. I see mowers parked all over 21 going to Statesville. I see mowers parked in Mooresville. But Exit 42 is still a garbage dump, and unless we pick it up and make sure that it looks nice. The Troutman Local Facebook page, we're constantly getting hammered that it's not clean, and they're hammering us, the town of Troutman. Maybe, and again, I don't want to get in a media thing with those people posting that stuff, but maybe we need to let those people know that it doesn't fall under our area to clean it up and pick it up. So I would ask our town manager or whatever we can do to reach out and complain that we're not being treated fairly.
I'll be happy to reiterate the message. With DOT's funding shortfalls, one of the explanations, as I had heard, is, hey, a lot of people would look at it and say, okay, it's just $1,000 if they contracted somebody to come in and kill all the weeds down at exit 42, for example. It'd be just $1,000 to come and do this one project. The problem is, with all the 800 and some cities and municipalities and the 100 counties in the state to do all of it, it's 1,200 and some, I'm sorry. But with the 100 counties and all that, then you add that, multiply that by 1,000 in all of them, that's exactly why they had funding shortfalls. Adam and I can tell you specifically the one area of concern that happens sometimes is just on the other side of the Food Line Shopping Center area, on the shoulder of the road there. It looks bad. We get at least one weekly call or comment on social media somewhere about we're not taking care of the shoulder of the road there. For one, whoever did the work for the phone company that was contracted in, they came back during the muddy season of the year, and all that debris, for example, got piled up on the shoulder of the road. We have been in touch with DOT and told them, when Adam and I met with them personally, we'll use our equipment and send a bill to whoever. And they're like, no. We're on top of it. We're looking into it. And as a matter of fact, just this morning, Adam mentioned in our meeting that he was going to follow up with them because of more complaints about the shoulder, and it's a hazard. Not just that it looks bad, but it's a hazard right there, that if somebody needed to utilize that shoulder for safety, they can't do it. So I absolutely hear you, and we'll follow it up. Just wanted to give a little more feedback in our conversations of what we've been hearing.
They didn't seem to like the idea that we were gonna send them a bill. So even though basically we all know that they're not gonna pay it, but
Yeah, they would.
it's not bad to sometimes send love letters. Thank you.
Mr. Harris?
I have a question to Emily. So, the question was asked me earlier, just a little while ago, how was it the community wanted ball fields and stuff? And I know that them ball fields were needed so bad that you were kind of forced into put them in service this year before we actually got everything finished. And through all the seasons, what would you say about your first season as a success, trying to get that in with the parking lot being worked on? And
First season was a nightmare. Because we had to get it online as quickly as we did, some of the school fields were not online. So trying to put the rec teams on our fields in the middle of a construction project while we were trying to finish up the fence project, while the rec teams were already short some fields, it was a challenge, a very large challenge. It was also at the transition of our interlocal agreement with Iredell County. It was also at the transition of some staffing in-house. So I'm thankful that it is over and we can restructure in the fall. So
I would say it was definitely needed though, where those ball fields were definitely
they were
needed.
definitely needed, yes. And we have some other needs as well, but we'll
But I was
look to
just
do
wondering how
things.
much you struggled with that, and just want to give you a chance to see what that year was like.
It was a struggle, yes, but we're gonna do some things differently in the fall. We're gonna restructure how, we're gonna put, youth leagues are gonna have a certain number of days, and then the community at large are gonna have a certain number of days and time blocks, and we're gonna reallocate some responsibilities to different, so the youth league's gonna have some responsibilities, and so we're gonna just do things a little bit differently. But now we know what challenges there are that we didn't know. So growing pains, which is great, but anytime you add a new amenity, you have new challenges, right? So new levels, new devils. So now we know.
But through all that, I've never heard anyone complaining about it, other than that long walk after you have to go around the
Yeah.
park, but they understood it, but I never really saw a complaint, so the people were glad to have that, I think.
We fielded the complaints here, so I'm glad you didn't get them. We got them. So that's good.
Everything would, if they make a comment about something negative, I would throw out two more positives back
Oh,
on
good.
it. So it was,
Good.
to me, that's still good to me. And The only other thing I was going to thank the town manager for being responsive. I asked for 2 favors from him the last week or so, and he's jumping on both of them. One was over on Perry Road, and the other was the meeting we saw a while ago. I mentioned it last meeting, so, and we met with those 2 things. So I just appreciate being responsive when council has something like that.
And if I may add, just adding to what Emily had said, we've had lots of positive feedback about the ballparks, but this was just one of those worst storm scenarios to where the other fields that would typically be available in our city limits were not. And a lot of our people that use the fields, as a parent of a 6-year-old or even a 12-year-old, a lot of those folks, as we've discussed, even like with DOT, with Councilman now, a lot of those folks are parents of a child needing to play a sport. It does not resonate in their mind, well, the school owns this field or the town owns that field, and then it gets resonated, well, as tax dollars pays for it, therefore we should be able to use it whenever, and that's just simply not. I mean, you would think that, we would hope that it could be that simple, but the ball fields themselves were in such demand that there literally was no unscheduled time for them through the week, and then on the weekends, very limited amount of time that happened. And again, it was a perfect storm scenario where the school fields were not available to us. Ours came online in the middle of a construction zone.
And I'm not sure what's going on with the school, but they're fencing off everything across the road from me, all where ball fields are. They're putting fencing up now. I'm not sure.
They're adding
They'll
fencing.
shut them off to us or what.
I think they had squatters show up on their fields a few times, again, under the umbrella that, well, taxes paid for them, therefore you can. And the school system has a usage policy and procedure, just like we do as a town. If somebody wants to use our pavilion, we have a procedure for that. Well, it's the same thing with ball fields for organized events. Otherwise, certain things in the park, like the playground equipment, is come and play, it's open to you, but when you go out to the ball fields, then there's agreements that need to be met.
Mr. Hinkle?
Listening to the conversation on our park, I just was wondering if Troutman had not stepped up with staff and council to put those ball fields in, even though they're still in the process of being completed. What would the situation have been like for a lot of parents with their kids if other ball fields were not available? We filled a need, we continue to fill a need, and that need is growing, so are we growing. Schools, of course, will hopefully start stepping up and helping around, but again, if it hadn't been for our ball fields, where would it have been? So,
I think that's a very great comment to make, Mayor Pro Tem. I do, and as Emily appropriately said, we sure fielded a lot of complaints in disgruntlement, but I agree with your sentiment completely, and I would
They were
like to.
thankful to be able to, the rec leagues were thankful to be able to have a season, so they were, but, I think it was COVID and people were trying out a sport that they'd never played before just because it was the only sport that has really opened up at that time, and so, and then you'd have a parent down there with 3 or 4 children, and then somebody would need to use the bathroom. Well, we only had porta-johns there, and there were just little things that were big, things to people that, they didn't know the full picture or the whole story. So there were, but they were thankful that our fields were here, what we had of them, and even though there were challenges like walking around the construction zone or whatever, at the end of the day, they were thankful, and 2A was thankful, and it just so happened to work out that we were able to open up the way we could right when COVID was affecting the field usage at Troutman Middle. So, we say it was a disaster on this end, but in the grand scheme of things, we got through it and we made it. And
doesn't sound like a disaster to me, it sounds like a godsend.
we made it. We made it.
It wasn't perfect, but it was darn good.
We will
And
not.
it
We will
continues to
not
get
do it
better
the way
and
we
better.
just did it. We have learned from those. We learned so.
We all do.
That's
We all
right.
do as we go along, and no
That's
matter
right.
what.
It was a learning experience.
Thank
for
you,
sure.
thank y'all for that, everybody.
Yeah.
Sally, the part of the Parks and Rec and so forth. Second thing is addressing Eddie's, Councilman Nell's comments on DOT. Obviously, there's no love lost between me and DOT. I could say some things, but since I won't say them, but DOT continues to amaze me. As I've said before, with their money problems a couple of years ago, if they'd been working private industry, half of them would have been fired, demoted, what have you. But I'm sure most of them are still working. But I understand where you're coming from. I agree. We're paying the cities, municipalities, as well as the state and counties, drivers and residents are paying for the stupidity and unprofessionalism of certain employees at State DOT who, as I say, are still doing their job, and I'm sure hopefully they've learned their lesson, but we're still paying for their mistakes. I don't see where the fairness of that is, but it is what it is. I will have to say this, in reading the town manager's comments on that and why he is proposing, and perhaps has even, to a limited degree, instituted some measures to where the town is stepping up and doing some of these things, for the very reasons that you mentioned, the criticism we're seeing on Facebook, other comments that, well, it's part of the town, it's in the town, so it must be part of the town's problem. I see that. I asked Rose to read that to me, because if I read it, I'd probably, throw my iPad up against the wall. But nonetheless, I tell her to put it out, some things, and sometimes she will, sometimes she does not. I'm going to put that out. Trying to explain to people that it's not Troutman's responsibility. We take care of Troutman, the state takes care of its responsibilities. However, again, referring back to what our town manager sent us in our packet, I'm going to have to agree with him that for the sake of our town, for the sake of the looks of our town, and for our citizens who are the ones that are doing the complaining, and when they complain, I definitely listen. I feel that maybe we have to bite the bullet real hard and spend some town funds to keep our town looking and enhance it, since the state has fallen behind. We've got some things we need to bring back up to a certain level. To do that until we can somehow, and other municipalities, get the state to once again, through DOT, to do what they're supposed to do in the beautification of not only the building of highways, maintaining of highways, but the beautification on the side of those highways. And so how long that'll be, I don't know. The town manager can, again, do what we're asking to get with state legislators, let them know how we feel, and this is not one of those things that for a few weeks or a few months it's a big item in the news, and then it goes away and everybody kind of forgets about it, and it's business as usual. I hope that doesn't occur. But in the meantime, I don't know what else to do. Oh yeah, we can send them a bill, and I don't think they're going to but symbolism is symbolism. But at least if we can do a minimum through the town to keep our town looking decent, to the point to where our citizens don't feel that they need to put it out there on social media and discuss it among themselves and call us and call our staff to complain. If we can at least somehow prevent that a little bit, and ourselves take a little bit more pride in the looks of our town in the meantime, then I'll certainly support our town manager in that regard. I feel like I know where he's coming from, and while, like you, Eddie, I'm sitting there gritting my teeth, why? At the same time, reality is reality, and DOT's going to always be DOT. Unprofessionalism, if they ever change, God bless them for it, but I'm not in my lifetime. But in the meantime, I will support our town manager continuing to do what we have to do, at least minimally, to keep our town looking decent and nice. So that's my 2 cents. Obviously, there are others, and if there needs to be a vote, there needs to be a vote. But that's my feeling from a personal level on it. I'll finish up by saying that I read with great anticipation and excitement on our Independence Day parade, our fireworks festival, I'll call it festival, in the evening, and you're continuing to expand that and do things, and I'm really looking forward to that. And part of that coming out of COVID that we just discussed in terms of the parks will be good for people too, coming out from the home and getting back into feeling normal with fireworks and being able to get out and celebrate that with the family and the food trucks and the vendors and so forth, and just give that feeling that hey, we're beyond that now, for some semblance of normalcy once again. So I'm looking forward to that. With that, I will pass it on to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Really, the only thing I would say is maybe there's an opportunity for us to send a letter to Senator Sawyer, just outlining our overall concerns, so she'll have it on record. And I'm happy to sign that, just with the sentiment of the council. If you can put that together, then I'm happy to sign it and send it over to her regarding Exit 42. Again, agree with the sentiments that, but I also know it's a challenge for a lot of communities right now with lack of DOT attention. But I think they're still trying to get themselves back organized. Parking lot, just wanted to get an update on the parking lot over there. I see they've got kind of at least some of the grading done and some of the curbing in. Yeah, they may have to stop here in a minute.
They actually brought about 20 truckloads of water earlier today, and it looks like right now they may be shutting down. But there was a lot of hand cut, for those in the profession understands exactly the terminology, but there was a lot of hand cut curbing done for the parking lot that due to weather, we postponed us a little bit in making sure the base was dry enough for that to hold up long term. But if you all get a chance, and absolutely please do go and look, but we've got a lot of concrete already poured for the outer perimeter part of just the parking lot project. That's not speaking of what Emily already has lined up through our town vendor that we normally use, Quality Concrete, to put in their parts. And there's a concrete shortage going on right now to add two things. So the combination of factors is put it a little bit behind where we would like to have been, but we are still on schedule to have everything done by the middle of June, which was the target date. If the weather will permit and hold out, the asphalt will be laid this middle of the week starting, or the end of the week. With what the weatherman is calling, I'm a little skeptical if we're going to get that done. Adam is already making plenty of work arrangements for his crew in anticipation of the weather that's been forecast. But whether it be the end of this week or next week that it gets done, we're that close that the asphalt will be laid and poured, and then they will let it set and then come back and stripe it shortly thereafter.
Good, looks good. I mean, just like West Consulting is at least on top of it, but looks good. It'll be a very different looking park over there. But
we was talking earlier today, the 79 current spaces Emily has laid out, and this will dramatically increase the parking that will be available. But as we explained to Mr. McNiff earlier, once we have parking in that end of the park for ADA compliance and some other things, then that puts more of a burden on us to then follow through with the concession stand restroom area for that end of the park. We are, a couple council members and I have talked to a couple different ones, and we will do a design build type project in that, and hope that we can get that started soon with you all's budget approval, hopefully Thursday.
so, and don't shoot me, especially Emily, when I say this. So 79 spaces in that area. I guess things kind of get back going again. It'll be a good test to see, will additional parking be needed? Has there ever been a thought about maybe adding a row of parking along the back side of the drive coming in there? I know right now it's just kind of open,
On the right-hand side?
yeah, on the grass.
At one time, the dog park was initially over there.
Right. Yeah.
There was also discussion for additional shelter to go on that side.
Okay.
And actually, it's morphed since this project began. It's not what it was initially. They've added, I don't know if you've looked, the excess dirt that they've dug up, they've added a whole nother row that's lifted up additional land space over there, so that's opened a whole nother world of opportunity.
That's exactly what I was thinking about
Yeah.
that, because I was with Ron when we were out there talking with him about putting
Right.
that dirt over there.
So
But
that-
that opens up a whole nother space.
Yep, so we can revisit that. I was talking with Betty Jean Troutman this weekend. Sunday, they'd rented the park. She stopped by my house after their rental. And so we were talking of how much, she said, we've already outgrown the park in so many ways already, and just for shelter space. And I said, Betty Jean, every weekend, it's nothing for me to have it rented, one rental right after the other, all weekend, all Saturday, all Sunday. And she said, I believe it, because as they were sitting there for their reunion, she said people were coming up wondering when our rental would be over, because they just wanted out of the sun from the splash pad. Well, we have the shade and the bench, beneath it, and then there's the shades on the playground, but, from the splash pad, they come that way. But if you're sitting there trying to have a baby shower or a
Right.
company picnic, you don't want wet swimsuits running through your, through your event. But, so we need to add additional shelters, and the need is there and the demand is there. So maybe there's a way to do some additional parking plus some additional shelters. And Steve and I have spoken to Boy Scouts over the years, and we've talked about, from the initial master plan, there were just the two, and we've talked about on Parks and Rec, there were just those two, but that's something that's more of a need than we initially anticipated was a need, just for revenue purposes, but also for community demand, because we don't have a community center, and we don't have a senior center, and we don't have those places for people to have, family reunions. And we've talked about that property across from the library. Is that somewhere that, they can have family picnics and stuff? That whole side of town doesn't have anywhere to gather, so it's like, that's just something, gathering space is not something that we have a whole lot of in town. So that need is there, and I hear it all day long as my phone's ringing for rentals. So that's something we need to think about as we maybe make an addendum to our master plan for that facility, and also facilities going forward. Something that our community's asking for is rental space. So, but something to consider, and definitely that space is unused space. The space you're referring to is unused. So we either need to add maybe some angled parking through there with an additional shelter behind it,
Right.
or find some way to put those, I don't know what they're called, but those, the stops, and then go behind it and leave it natural gravel park in there and go behind it with some shelters. But the plan for the softball, baseball field pavilion, there was no shelter with that. That was just a restroom, a concession stand. So even with the build of that one, there was no shelter intended to be with it. So we were talking about that, that maybe we need to think about revising that one. But our playground and facility vendor, Bliss Products, who's been with us from the beginning down there, and Jeff is really good. Jeff Bliss, he's good to anticipate some of our needs down there, and up and coming things. He sent me some prefab products that are coming out now, and they're beautiful, and they're very cost effective, and they match what we've got going on down there. And so he brought some catalogs by last week, and I was showing it to them, and I said, what do y'all think about these? But they're very cost effective, and they're beautiful, and they're just like wood grain look, and they're beautiful. So maybe there's some things that hadn't even hit my radar that wouldn't be much cost demand on us, and wouldn't take a whole lot of
Are you talking about prefab buildings? That type
yeah,
of
just
thing?
shelters that, and then they're beautiful. They have this real nice, like the front of ours down here with the wagon wheel, and they actually match. They're just beautiful, and they're not, they don't look prefab, but the pieces just click together somehow. They're just really nice. I'll have to send you some links to the catalogs that he brought me, but there's options that I didn't know anything about. Of course, that's not my forte, but so Jeff said he would get us some quotes and some information on that, but stuff that's coming up all the time that, he was just bringing by, and he said you'd be interested in. So I appreciate him bringing that information by. But anyway, something to consider. But gathering space is something that we definitely need. So.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm glad to see that even though I may be shooting myself in the foot, I'm glad to see that the emergency road, with the gate, has been completed, because that was supposed to be Mercy Road, but I don't know the way it was. It's kind of been hard, I guess, for a Mercy vehicle maybe to transcend that a little bit, but the way it is now, and the way, y'all got it laid out and so forth, it's, it's going to serve its purpose if it's ever needed. Hope it's never needed, but, it'll definitely serve its purpose a lot better than,
Yeah,
what we do. In fact,
just a hill of grass, yeah.
Yeah, and the grass and the roughness, but it'll be what we've been picturing for some time now, and I'm glad to see it's coming to fruition.
I went and met with Elba and Connie, who live closest to that gate down there this past Friday. Elba on unrelated issue, but they both was very complimentary of the parking lot project and coming down that hill. Adam and Kevin met me out there afterwards to address some concerns Elba had. Nothing to do with our park, but we coming off of that hill. I'm going to speak with May Mead once they start the paving, but we feel like there needs to be a curb there to speed bump, so that it'll help deter the water once it's coming down that asphalt drive, and there's already manhole pipe there for it to just wash right into. But we look forward to that being completed through there, and to add a little bit of conversation since we first spoke when you and I were walking down back there. Just to kind of stress a point that Emily made, if you was driving into the park going towards the new construction, that little grassy lip that would be there now, being as we've created another mound of dirt that's probably about 5 foot lower, that according to Dwayne Bell, lends itself, if you all can picture when you're driving through the mountains at the Parkway or Blue Ridge, where they have the 12 by 12 style railroad ties to use as a bumper or a guard for keep vehicles from the high spots. If we can construct something like that in what is now the grassy area and add gravel, like Emily was saying, that part kind of works, and Dwayne said it could, and even if necessary, add asphalt to it at some point in time, just for additional angled parking. But that part that we added the dirt to, that's been pulled off of the fields to create the parking lot, he don't think without some, they've compacted it when they put it in there, which would be fine for us to put like buildings or shelters for people to meet, but he's not quite certain that it would be compacted to the standards of paving or doing something of that nature. But absolutely, once you and I talked about it, I talked to him, but I think we could get the angled parking up there and accomplish the same goal.
Okay, great.
One more thing, just really quick. I just wanted to piggyback on what Emily was saying about the need for the rentals. I'm 100% in agreement with you that we need that. I have seen that citizens asking for it, and as someone who's been in the recreation field for 21 years, I can see how it benefits a community.
Mhm.
So any way I can help or be involved or whatever, just let me know.
Okay, thank you.
Last thing, before we move on to our agenda, last month I believe I know we recognized our Troutman Fire and Rescue. I got a call today from the mayor of Huntersville, who was at the state park this weekend with his wife, and Miss Annarella fell and broke her arm, and our fire and rescue went over and helped her out, and so they were extremely grateful and appreciative. I think, in fact, as they were riding to Huntersville to the hospital, they had a great conversation, and so but they wanted me to pass that on, and I'll mention it again on Thursday night. But shows the wonderful service that they provide to our community and it's recognized by others who come into our community. So just want to make sure that folks knew that. That takes us to the next item on our agenda, which is staff comments and other business. So at this time, I'll start with our town manager.
Nothing additional.
Okay.
On the comment side, we most of the issues you all that discussed, we have been and worked with those. Michael Barker, if you would stand up and wave at everybody. As you all can see, we have on the screen now a little graph that's telling us when we're talking if it's going out. I appreciate Michael being able to do that. That way we're not having to look around, is it working or is it going out? Because as you can tell, it absolutely is. We have a lot of IT concerns and discussed at length this morning in our meeting that we hope Michael is able to help us with that going forward. That's the only thing I'd like to break off that we have.
Great. Welcome, Michael. Appreciate your assistance. We've been a little bit technology challenged, but we've made do, and so but we look forward to your expertise helping us to move forward.
That was pretty poor of my part just to say there's Michael, and I apologize. Michael's full-time career is IT, but he is a Troutman City resident, also a TYAA parent and coach and volunteer, and we snaggled him a lot just out of necessity long before we was able to get him to commit, and he just recently had his 5th child. So he's going to be in TYAA a while, and definitely understands the needs for our ball fields and that relationship that we have within the community. But I apologize for just saying there's Michael.
He served on our Park Recreation Committee for many years, so he's served our town for a long time.
It's always good to see our volunteers showing up on staff. I think we've got a track record of doing that, so be careful if you volunteer. But
as I said, we need an IT person, full-time.
Good deal. Next item is the monthly revenue update. Mr. Shealy.
Thank you, Mayor. If you look at the bolded items, you'll see that our May sales tax, property tax, and down at the bottom, the water sewer billing were up across the board compared to last year. And as the year winds down, I think you'll find that we came through a very difficult, trying year quite admirably. I think you're going to find that we're in very sound financial condition and town is in good shape.
Any questions or comments? Mr. Shealy, I still got to get you to get these years.
Well, if you'll notice, halfway down, I did change from 20 to
Right, I see that.
It changed at the top because that way the December.
I got you.
You know,
Okay.
you change in
Mid-year. Yeah. Got it.
I just want to make a comment on monthly revenue update, but at the back, under miscellaneous, Town of Troutman Financial Summary Report, I am particular deaf on under revenues, the first two, current year levy of property taxes, all prior year property taxes. Year-to-date collected 107.2%, under all prior, year-to-date 153%. What we've just come through, I'm tickled to death with those figures.
Well, I think that speaks well to the citizens for not getting behind and not putting the taxes that are due.
It also says a lot about the health of our community, the financial health, physical health, obviously mental health, but financial health, nothing wrong with that either. And I think all of that, is reflected in these numbers and numbers here too on the monthly statement. This little community continues to amaze me.
It's growing.
resiliency and so forth.
I think people take a lot of pride in it as well.
Great. Next item is the issuance of debt for property acquisition for 3 lots located on Eastway, North Eastway Drive. I will now open this public hearing. Mr. Shealy?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, as you remember from just a couple of months ago, when you go to finance property acquisition or purchase of equipment or anything like that, there's a process that has to be followed, and part of that process is to hold a public hearing on it. In this particular case, it being less than $500,000, we did not have to go through getting local government commission approval, which simplified the process a bit. We were able to get a good proposal through Truist. They honored the same terms and rate that we had on the previous loan for the other property that we bought. So we are again talking a 10-year loan for, I think it's 2.58%. So, and having just worked with them, we expect the process to go very smoothly. At this point, if you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to address them.
Any questions for Mr. Shealy? Okay. Anyone else here want to comment on this public hearing? Okay. If not, I will now declare this public hearing closed. Council, you've heard from Mr. Shealy on a number of times on the purchase of these 3 lots. Is there a motion to consider the approval of financing using Truist Bank?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Mayor.
Uh,
Sorry, Sally.
A motion and a second. Any other question or comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Next item is a overview of the upcoming agenda for Thursday night. Mr. Wyatt?
As you all see in your packet, it's number 2, consent agenda items. Storm growling out there. Intense. We'll have our First Amendment to the interlocal agreement between the Town of Mooresville, Town of Davidson, Town of Troutman, City of Statesville, and County of Iredell, creating the Lake Norman Regional Transportation Commission. That will be on your consent item. That's nothing abnormal. That's why we placed it there. We also will have recognition of 2 citizens that you all had voted 2 meetings ago for us to have back and invite. And I apologize, I skipped there the introduction of our detective. He will be here as well. You all have already met him, but we will officially meet him and announce him to the public. We also have another officer that started today, his first time with us, Officer Trivet. He might get an opportunity of visiting us before he leaves, but our police department has been busy recovering stolen vehicles the last 2 weeks, and he was part of that today, and they've got paperwork they're completing. They got another one. Where'd you say it was from, Chief? Winston-Salem. Another one today from Winston-Salem. But we will have our 2 citizens here to recognize, and then for our new business, we have Jonathan here that will go over several annexation planning items that will be there based off of social media. We also expect that there will be some citizens here, and even though it's not on the agenda, I would just like to make you all aware we will be more cognizant of the 3-minute time frame Even though we had to remove that clock once we brought in the new screen and have done some repairs. Paxton got the wall patched behind it where it had several holes in it over the years, and now it's painted to match. But we hope to have a clock here by Thursday so that people can see. If not, we may have to just tell them that I, myself, or Kim One will be keeping 3-minute timers on our phones if necessary. But if social media is accurate, and most of the time it's not, but if it is, we anticipate there to be some folks here to discuss some of the projects that were voted 2 years ago to approve that are now starting to see work. And it's their prerogative if they wish to show.
Will this screen be, it'll be up there, right? Because he can put the camera on the screen if possible.
Also wanted to ask, are you getting a different timer, or are you going to use that same display?
I'm looking
That
for
one
another
fell in the
one.
trash can.
I'm looking for another timer. I just haven't found one that.
I just wonder because I know the county commissioners, theirs sits up on their desk.
Yes.
If we could have something like that, then, you know.
The
it-
one
Yeah.
we had Chinese directions on the fob. None of us knew how to read that, so it fell in the trash can.
I also think Felina's idea is actually a great one.
Yeah.
You can just put it on the screen. Yeah, even I think with sound.
Michael?
Yes. If you could set up some sort of a notification, like when they've got 30 seconds left, you know, if they're 2.5 minutes, some sort of a ding or a horn or something so that they can, got 30 seconds to wrap it up.
But then orange just came out.
If that's
Something
gonna be
to wrap
up
it up.
there and they're
Yeah,
at the podium,
they should be
they
able-
could see that.
Yeah.
The gong show.
But again, and I understand, Sally, you're right, there should be, but you know, we had that one up there, it's pretty clear, and I obviously went over it.
Right.
And something that will just alert them, and they can start wrapping it up, because generally if you say, okay, your time's up, they keep going another 30 seconds to get whatever left out of them, and so that kind of pulls it ahead another, ahead 30 seconds to where after 3 minutes is up, shut them off, you know.
Oh, yeah.
If needed.
Yeah.
I still like the horn idea.
Airport.
One of them families.
Yeah.
Whatever to get their attention.
That's right, yes, sir.
We'll let you all work through that.
That's right. The biggest part that's in here is the proposed budget. Steve sprung it upon me today that I'm supposed to write an epitaph of last year's state and then be very cognizant of how beautiful this coming year is going to be and present this budget. So with the statute that requires it, what I thought I had was a busy week just got busier once he sprung that on me. But we will be ready Thursday to do that.
Oh, you can whip that out.
Oh, no. Not and adhere to the statute. But it definitely is good. We have had a couple conversations. I would like to say our 160D, I was talking to a city person in a neighboring town, I won't mention which one, that is very upset with the way their protocol has changed involving them, and they was asking us about ours, and I said, no, we're good. But as Jonathan forewarned you all, getting ahead of that in time and having it debated and discussion, and having discussion, I think has left our boards and committees that we have in a better position than what some areas are experiencing throughout the state. But that's all I have about the upcoming agenda, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
On the notes, it says that two of the annexations have been asked for a month delay.
Yes.
But there's still one there.
Yeah.
So they're gonna come Thursday and
That's
ask
because
for a
last
month?
month we did the notice for it.
You set the public hearing date.
Oh,
And that's why it's in here now, so that it's not gonna be there, and it's just simply stated, there's a public hearing date that's already been advertised, and now we're saying that it's been postponed.
We've actually crafted a couple motions for whomever wishes to make those motions for the continuation of those hearings. I've got copies of these, and I can distribute those to board members at the end of the meeting to help you script this out a little bit. It's a little bit unusual. It isn't precedent setting. When I was working for City of Charlotte, we had to do it a couple times. There's nothing, we checked with our attorney, he's 100% in favor of this and on board with it. It's just an unanticipated situation when you're trying to fast track these projects and all of a sudden, for some reason or other, somebody wants to hit the pause button and say, let's do this right instead of doing it now. And we're in agreement with the applicants of those two projects that it's better to get it right 100% than to rush ahead and do this during the month of June.
And those motions will be made at the beginning of the meeting as
During
far as the
During the adjustments.
adjustments of the agenda.
Yes.
That's so we don't have to re-advertise. the
Right.
public hearing.
Yeah.
So there will be no hearing, even though we're saying probably will, but the motion will be made to continue it. There will be no part of that hearing held
Right.
Thursday night.
That absolutely can be one of your options, yes.
Of course, I didn't know if we were gonna go ahead and hold a hearing, and then at the end of that hearing, we would vote to continue it till the next meeting. But you're saying, or suggesting, whatever, proposing, that no hearing be held whatsoever, we just continue it and have the full hearing in July.
Correct.
Okay.
And by way of background, these are voluntary petitions, so it's it would be very unusual for people to attend and speak to the hearing. Maybe less so with the companion rezoning petitions. I think that's where the hearings would probably be better attended, but not for the annexations themselves.
All right. Next item on the agenda is closed session pursuant to General Statute 143-318, 11A6, personnel matter. Would you like to have in the room?
Just staff and clerk, just council and all staff.
Michael.
I just saw that.
Off right there.
See?
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Any opposition? Please hang around. All right, now, we're adjourned.